I conducted 3 interviews for my special education interview module 3. I interviewed an administrator, a special education teacher, and a paraprofessional, all within the Olathe Northwest High School. And it was very interesting to see the different perspectives and see how aligned that our special education department is as far as communication, as far as handling different student needs. I found this very interesting. As we move forward, you'll see the different perspectives from the different, all 3 different cases here. The first question I asked was about the child fine procedures. Pretty common that at the high school level, all 3 of these people that I interviewed were saying that most of the students are identified. The special education students are identified in elementary schools and the middle schools as well. Occasionally through standardized testing, through parent need, maybe there's a different behavior change at home that they'll identify some students that need a different behavioral plan, maybe need some help in a resource room, different things. But overall, mostly at the high school level, they all identified these students as probably already being identified at an earlier stage in their academic career. The challenging parts of their roles, the administrator talked about just hiring quality and retaining quality paraprofessionals. I think that's kind of an ongoing theme. It seemed that our administrator found it to be very challenging just to keep good people around. I think it's kind of a revolving door with paraprofessionals. I think they're probably underpaid and they don't receive the benefits. So you're going to have some in and out with that throughout the school year even, and that gets challenging. Just creating continuity with the kids it can become a challenge. Another thing the administrator talked about was just finding time to spend with the special education teacher, which we talked about in our dissertation in Module 2. And the special education teacher found their role to be very time-consuming with paperwork and just dealing with regular education teachers. Some of them are great, they admitted that, and I think just like anything else, when you have a big school of 2,000 students, you're going to have teachers that really support special education and teachers that who want to teach at a higher level and don't like modifying and different things. So those are the different challenges a special education teacher faces. The paraprofessional, on the other hand, the challenge they face is just dealing with different behaviors of students and the plans that are set for them, and understanding and utilizing those detailed behavior plans for each individual student, because those students, from hour to hour, you really have to have an understanding of what their behavioral plan is. How are you going to handle if they act a certain way? Those plans are all detailed, and that can be very challenging for paraprofessionals. The rewarding part of their job is the success stories, I think, was a common theme. Students know that you care about them and the growth that students see. Obviously, academically, socially, behaviorally, those are the keys to seeing growth in students. The paraprofessional talked about a great story about they know that the rewarding part of their job, and they know they've connected with their students, is when the parents show that and understand that the special education really does care about their kids. The advice about supervision of staff, I think that there were some different answers here. Again, looking for alignment from administrator, special education teacher, paraprofessional. But the administrator talked about being open to learn just from the ground up. You have to be a great listener and listen to what the special education teacher is talking about, listen to what the students are saying, and be a servant leader and provide the resources needed to that department to help the students succeed. Special education teacher, on the other hand, looks for the teacher I interviewed had some experience at some other schools, and she had mentioned that the level of experience is very important. And they're looking for administrators that are going to be team players and don't try to change things right off the bat. Just listen to where they're at. Subtle changes are key. Don't come in and try to change the whole special education department overnight. Be a good listener when it comes to that. The paraprofessional talked about the special education teacher and the administrator spending more time with special education students and getting to know them on a personal level, getting to know their name, their interest. Those were concerns and advice that they had of basically good administrators and how they should handle special education students. Parents. Again, the dissertation in Module 2 that we read and reflected on, I think a lot of the things pop back up here, but the communication is very, very important. Special education teacher that I interviewed use all forms of communication. Emails are great, but some people don't have emails, so they use phone calls and set up personal meetings and different conversations. The administrator talked about sometimes the communication is obviously important, but being transparent, and sometimes those conversations are tough, but it is important that you're honest and you give them exactly what you're seeing at school and come up with a great plan to how you're going to better the student and develop that relationship with the parents, that they know that you care about their kid and that you are going to be honest and upfront of what they're seeing. The paraprofessional in this particular case, when it comes to parents, they're instructed not to have any contact with parents, which I found to be interesting. But very rarely do they sit in on IEP meetings and different things like that. Most of their communication is given to the special education teacher that then passes that information on to the administrator and the parents. Working with regular education teachers, again, it was one of those things that some found very challenging, because some teachers, again, just like you have good teachers and you have teachers that aren't quite as good when it comes to different things in their teaching profession, and there's no different when it comes to special education and trying to modify and get things. Some teachers get that and really work hard at that. Some teachers really find that challenging. The regular education teachers find that challenging. A special education teacher talked about just working with the paras to make sure that they understand their roles with the regular education teacher and making sure things are being modified and regular education teachers are following the IEPs that are set up for these students. The para also talked about that they're there only to support the students, and they love when they see the regular education teacher embrace the special education student being in the classroom, getting them involved with regular education students. It really shows that they care about all students. The advice for first-year administrators is, I think the administrator that I interviewed had been an administrator for probably 15, 16 years, and so they've been involved with special education for about that long as well. But the advice that she gave was to ask a lot of questions, be a good listener, and start off from the beginning, building relationships. Special education teacher talked about that new administrators don't need to know everything, and to be patient with the process of special education and the laws and the different things. That's why you have to work well as a team, and just come in and don't try to make a lot of big changes and do things. Just be a good listener and see where they're at. And as time, goes along, just like any other team works, you provide suggestions and work together and continue to grow as an administrator, gain some experience through probably some heartaches and different things. But if you work together as a team, first-year administrators can learn a lot to utilize and gain that experience. The roles of teacher and the administrator, I found this question probably to be one of the most interesting in the interview, because from an administrator perspective, it's going to be different from the other two. But the administrator perspective, the teacher's role should be to assist the students and work with the administrator and the paraprofessionals. And the administrator also said that their role is to work with the teachers and just give them the resources that they need to be successful. Now, from a perspective of the special education teacher, the teacher's role would be to be great ambassadors for the students to help them be seen and heard, and if they have problems, to help them and to come up with the right plan to help them succeed. And the one thing this special education teacher really wants out of their administrators is just to be available, to have an open door policy when problems do occur, and to be a great listener and help come up with solutions. The paraprofessional talked about now they get to evaluate both the teacher and the administrator. The paras just want the teachers to listen and communicate what the plan is and don't deviate from that plan. If they do, then they need that new information of how they're going to handle a particular student. The para talked about the administrator being supportive of teachers and to work together and listen and be a good listener. The characteristics of quality administrators when it comes to special education, again, some different perspectives here, but I think the big thing is the relationship building and all the special education caring about students. I think that's very important, and the willingness to learn and understand that you probably don't know everything and be humble about that. That's very important. Did talk a little bit about with the administrator and our special education teacher did talk about special education law. You don't need to know it all, but both of them would say that because it's very extensive. But it is important that you have an understanding that there are resources out there that will help you with that. And just again, experience helps and understanding when laws change and what's going to be important. Probably some of the laws are going to pop up more than others, and it's important that you understand when those do that there are things in place that special education students. I guess they need those in place to make sure that they're heard and seen and things are done the right way. Paraprofessionals talked about the characteristic of quality administrators, and again talked about just the administration being present in the special education department in the kids' lives, and again listen to the needs that are out there and pull through and come up with a plan and use the resources they have. I think the overall theme for my interview, I really enjoyed this, and my objective going into this was to see the different through an administrator, through a special education teacher, through para, if our special education department was aligned. And I really feel like it is for the most part. Obviously, I felt like some of the answers, they wanted to make sure they were politically correct when they said things. But overall, I think the big thing is it takes teamwork. You have to build great relationships with students and with parents and with each other to work together. And everybody has to care for all students, and special education students particularly need that care, and they need to understand that you care about them and everybody's working in their best interest.